Dwayne, how are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
there are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks very much for joining us. We have an opportunity to sort of, shift our monthly mental health matters to today. And just a quick reminder, 1 p.m. we're going to be taking the press briefing live. We'll tell you more about it as it gets closer to time. But we want you to be a part. And if you're not online yet looking at the wonderful panelists that we have today, go now. A prize awaits you. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And certainly always a pleasure to be able to sit and facilitate. I'm truly privileged and honored, and especially with the excellent company once again of Dr. Alexandra Button. And thank you, not just for your determination and commitment, dedication, professionalism, the acumen, but just that, on any spirit to give and to serve. So thank you, Mom.
Yes, sir. And thank you very much, and thank you to Radio Cayman for always allowing us to have these panels and these important discussions.
Yeah. The idea, as we speak increasingly about mental wellness, I'm seeing it more and more across all media globally, and the idea that we can talk, about it with professionals, openly to our children, with our partners and spouses and the like, without so much of the stigma, as it were, that used to be once, but it's probably still there. As we go around, I want to ask, giving a quick reminder again to our listeners, 1 o'clock, there's a live press briefing. Yes, that means the people who present it are live as well. They may not look so. The people who are carrying it, just kidding. Laughter is good medicine. Of course, Norman would tell me I'll give you a time and switch later, but that's a different story. Could I ask my panelists, Dr. Warden, with you first, just a quick introduction, Nurse Dipner, to you, and then we'll go around and then we'll finish with Nurse Jasmine. Yeah. Just a good afternoon.
All right, good afternoon. So I'm Dr. Alexandra Bodden. I am a psychologist. I'm the owner of Encourse Cayman, and there we offer therapy and psychological testing for kids, teens, and adults. We also do therapy with horses, which is a lot of fun, and corporate team building workshops as well. I specialize in working with adults with a history of abuse or violence, as well as a history of addiction or difficulties with addictions.
Indeed. Yeah. Nurse Dipner.
Dipna Carton, community psychiatric nurse working at HSA, also a member of the Lloyds Island Voices intake team and the founder of Cayman, the mental health helpline. Yes, working with all range of people across the Cayman Islands with acute and chronic and enduring mental health issues. Thank you for having us.
And I guess you would be bi-coastal, the Brack and Grand Cayman.
Yes, absolutely. Most certainly.
There you go, man.
Good afternoon. I'm Ivy Robinson Taylor. I'm a member of the Loud Silent Voices and a caregiver.
Okay. Ms. Jasmine?
Good afternoon. I'm Jasmine Powell, psychiatric social worker, HSA, also a member of the Loud Silent Voices intake team. I primarily deal with patients and persons with acute mental illness, both inpatient and outpatient mental and behavioral health.
And if it's okay with you, I want to commend Ms. Jackie Neal, a visionary, a little bit of strong passion and a desire. She spoke to creating this, she did it with a way that understood empathy, love, sincerity, inclusiveness, and with such humility. And so that is I think, Dr. Warden, that's something I see within you. We have a gifting, a calling, and a desire. And sometimes when we present ourselves in our communities, we're not often as embraced as we should. But increasingly, I'm thankful that people look at you, Ms. Jackie and others, to see that this isn't about us, the individual, but we will champion that thing which we believe and not allow the naysayers to derail, degrade, denigrate, otherwise disrespect what is it that we're trying, to present.
Yeah.
And it's important.
No, absolutely. And so that's what really proud to be partnering with LSV, Loud Silent Voices, for the panel today. Ms. Jackie Neal does amazing things. We can hear the different organizations that are represented here. And throughout the community, we've come so far. But there's still the stigma, which is the negative perception and bias against people who experience mental illness, but also a lack of understanding comes with that as well. So that's where all of us, I know, are out there advocating and looking for opportunities to share messages and help people better understand what's going on, to help to build the empathy as well. So
Well, again, to our listeners, 1 o'clock we'll be carrying out the press briefing, and even though this will be an abbreviated discussion, I know it's going to be a continuing. Maybe with you first. It's interesting. I'm increasingly, I don't know if it's encouraged, or whether I see that it is important. I'm not sure, to share a little bit about our personal lives, our walk, the things we have, because many of us are very, very private, despite our public profile. We rarely talk about our finances. You don't even know my paycheck unless you sign it. And yet that would be good to tell your colleague or the person entering your field. Listen, when I was starting out, I was making a penny hitting. But if we don't tell, we don't share, we don't empower, we don't encourage, we don't nurture. But when it comes to our health and the fact that something is just niggling, Dr. Roy Borden reminds us the importance of, to ignore that health issue, because what could be something simple, if you address it now, could become fatal if you ignore it. But worse yet, if we're talking about, that thing that's happening within our mind that we can't see, touch, smell, or taste, but we know it's important, that even becomes worse when we talk about it. So,
Absolutely.
from you.
So it is very important to talk about it, Dwayne. And we said that I think I've bored you with this story before, but I think it's
never bore, ma'am. Never bore.
I think it's a good springboard to the discussion, really, and it talks about the history of mental illness and some of the challenges and why these fears have risen. So many years ago, when I was born, well, actually when my parents got married in Northern Ireland, the priest that married them asked them that they name their first daughter Dimna. So being the good Catholics that they were, they said, yes, of course, Father. So anyway, their first child came along, it was a son, so that was done, and that was that out of the way. Okay, the next one came along, and that was yours truly. So of course,
that's you.
That was me. Okay. So they said, okay, we'll name you Dimna. So that was fine. Dimna assimilated into everyday life, and I went to school, and I never really thought it was an unusual name, never thought anything about it. But some years later, when I went to high school, I met 2 other girls in the same class, and guess what? They were also called Dimna. It turned out that they were from the parish that my mother came from, and their parents had been married by the same priest. So many years later, I go into psychiatric nursing, right? And I had no idea that this name was synonymous with anything connected to psychiatry and mental health. And I learned the story of Saint Dimna. So Dimna was born in 7th century Ireland to a pagan king and queen. When she was about 11 years old, her mother died. The father was absolutely devastated by the loss of his wife. He could not cope, as we would say. He lost the run of himself, right? He wasn't making sensible decisions. He wasn't aware of his environment. He had lost touch with reality. And he started to manifest some desires upon his daughter because he wanted another wife and he needed an heir to his kingdom. Well, of course, she knew that this was wrong, and so she decided to leave Ireland, and she went to live in Belgium in a place called Geel. And while she was there was a lot of people in that community who were seen as being evil and demonised and horrible and, you know, castigated and kept on the periphery of the community, who didn't live well at all. They were none of those things. They were actually mentally unwell. But the ignorance was such, and the stigma and the fear was such, that no one would provide any refuge for them, any support, any guidance. But of course, Dipna, being the character that she was, decided to take these people under her wing, and with the little group of people that she had brought with her from Ireland, a priest and, you know, maybe a couple of, I don't know, helpers or whatever, they worked with these people and they established, I guess, what would have been mini homes in the community, like group homes essentially, and people became well and they flourished. Anyway, in time, Father tracked her down and he gave her a choice. You either come back to Ireland and you be my wife and provide me with a son and heir, or you can stay here, but I will kill you. She chose the latter, and she was beheaded around with the rest of her entourage. And after her death, miracles started to happen around this area and with the people, and the same people who were marginalised, living on the periphery of the community. So sometime later she was venerated and she became known as the patron saint of mental and nervous disorders. So that goes back to the 7th century. But of course, we know that our fears and ignorance and disbeliefs about mental health and the stigma goes back much further than that. But that's a good little story.
And a good way to go into our break, but as you said that, it's almost 7th century Ireland. But it wasn't that long ago when lobotomy and even today, certain other things so have we advanced. And this is where I commend this very small community for its willingness to have these very public discussions. Let's pause and perhaps Ms. Ivy, you give us a perspective. Of course, always Ms. Jasmine. Join us after. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
You deserve a unique vacation this year, one with easy non-stop flights from Cayman. Cayman Airways offers more non-stop flights to and from the Cayman Islands than any other airline. Now you can add Panama and Los Angeles to your travel bucket list. Skip the hassle of connecting flights. Panama is just a 2-hour non-stop flight from Cayman. And Los Angeles? Get there in less than 5 hours non-stop aboard Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Los Angeles or Panama getaway today.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. For all occasions and celebrations, let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
1 pack of cigarettes costs around $13. Let's add it up. 3 packs a day, 7 days a week for 52 weeks equals more than $13,000 a year. That's your dream vacation. That's a down payment to your plot of land. That's the cost for a full or partial renovation to your home, or even starting your own business. So you'd rather give up those dreams and ambitions to smoke? Really? Seriously. Smoking can cost you more than your savings. It can cost you your health. Join the Public Health Department's smoking cessation program by calling 244-2889 to register. Our next class begins May 31st. This message is brought to you by the Public Health Department in conjunction with the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Now, more than ever, supporting your immune system is crucial to helping your body fight off illnesses like the common cold, the flu, and COVID-19. At Valley Med Pharmacy on Walkers Road and in Boddentown, we carry all the essential vitamins and minerals to help support your immune system and improve your overall health. Some of our top immunity support picks are vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, elderberry, and quercetin, or the popular 7-in-1 immunity support. Our pharmacists are always on hand to help guide you and answer any questions. Visit ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road or Town. Live happy, live healthy with ValueMed Pharmacy.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us, and thanks again to Dr. Alexandra Borden for always, facilitating discussions and organizing an exceptional panel. This time around, despite as abbreviated as it is, still fantastic. The idea that we're talking about, mental health and the notion that we can talk about it publicly. Ms. Ivy, if I may, if it's okay through you, we have a term that we affectionately assign to men who assist us, a caregiver. And when I see our aging parents or spouses or others, we know what they were like in our formative years: strong, independent, very cognizant. And then as life takes its toll, maybe through illness or the like, we see significant changes, and sometimes there are behavioral changes where they're not as amenable and cooperative. They're not as gentle and loving, seeming like there is a spirit that's afflicting them in a different way. But as a caregiver, you have to deal with all that. There's a training that's required of you. There's a patience, there's a love, there's a kindness, there's a compassion. But there's also you're a person.
Yes. For me, it's my son. It's not an elderly person. So I am not there yet in the care of those persons. But I'm sure whatever age it is, it's still the same. It affects us the same. You have to have a lot of love and compassion. And you can only get that through the strength of God. And for me personally, there were times when I wanted to give up. But I had to press on, because if I gave up, what would happen to him? So I had to stick with him. And, regardless of what some people say or think, we talk about the stigma, I had to stick with him and love him because he's my son.
Yes, ma'am.
And he's a person, and he's a sweet person. He's a lovely child. So I'm sure all other caregivers go through the same feelings and emotions, and we just have to be there for our loved ones. And
I appreciate you being so personal. Thank you. I was going to try to speak on the periphery, but thank you for allowing us to share that, because many times we hear and we say, and unless we experience it, there is no greater love than a parent's love. Our spiritual father has that love that we who subscribe understand, but you, the parent, your child, whether you are the human parent or you the animal parent, you watch how that, animal kingdom, how that parent, takes care of this young. But in your case, only if you wish to share, and only the reason I'm asking is that sometimes we as the community don't understand the battle. We don't know the aches in our heart, the challenges and the struggles. And with respect, not necessarily to you, but I would not be surprised, and I trust that no one will hold against you. There are times, as you said, when you feel like, can I do this? I'm just at my wit's end. I'm exhausted. What more? Who can I access? Who can I call? What can I do? You get to that space sometimes.
I do. Right now, fortunately, I am so thankful to God. I'm not going through that phase anymore. He's really on the upside right now. But there were times when I made sure in my community, I informed everyone around me that this is my situation at my house. And so I get the help from them. So I never had to be scared that anybody will shoot my child if he went knocking on their windows or
Which
something.
is quite real, right?
Yeah. So I got the help, personally got the help like that, that support. And with the police, the same thing. I call them, they knew exactly who it is and which house it is.
Yeah.
Those, back then. And I say back then because now he's a different person.
Yeah.
He's really doing well. So.
And thanks for that, because in part of preparation for today, I reached out to a friend. Long ago, he discovered his father. We affectionately look at Alzheimer's and dementia in a certain way, and we subscribe a certain term. And then he saw something happening. And what was important? Now, this is in Cayman, right? This is why I love this place and why it's so important for us to know our community. So the surrounding neighbors saw that, his name isn't John, but, Mr. John is having this issue, and they become conscious. They don't know what. So and instead of hiding it, say, listen, if you see him in the yard, pay attention. If he walks through the gate, you pay attention. So there are times when he'll walk out, and next thing you know, he's at the post office or at a gas station, and the community knows, and the community responds that, hey, he shouldn't be out here unsupervised, so to speak. This is an otherwise healthy looking, very agile, strong, presented man, still dressed nicely, but yet he's not sure, wait a minute, where am I today? And saying that is one issue. But I wonder to what extent the communities have gone from when, not to berate the police, but there's someone at the door and is look threatening, and then the person is scared and they call, and the police come running with their stupid guns drawn. Next thing you know, what could be a simple thing, because you understand what's happening, 3 people are dead and the community is mourning. We see the news that happens in other parts of the world. Ms. Jasmine, that could happen here.
Yes, because you see, the stigma with mental health continues through the ages. I really pray that we will start cracking the nut to alleviate the stigma of mental health, because it's as if it continues with generations when persons hearing things. And that's why I commend this forum, Dr. Barden, and yourself, because this monthly forum is really knocking hard at that stigma to our listeners, because education is one way of alleviating the stigma. And also through coaching with new agencies like SV and with the professional team. So we have seen where the Cayman Islands are really moving in strides in alleviating the stigma. One of the things I also appreciate is the resources we have, private resources like InCourse, in Finite Man Care, and other agencies that provide the support for persons suffering from mental health who do not want to come to the hospital and would not want to be seen going to mental health unit at the hospital, because they thought people will see them going to the psychiatrist and say they are crazy.
Yes.
But then they would dress and go to another agency and receive the same services. So that is commendable to us, like Cayman Islands community, because that in itself, the provision of services, both private and public, is definitely a knock, and a hammering at the stigma. I was made more conscious of the stigma in mental health when I joined the mental health team as a psychiatric social worker. So in working as a social worker in another capacity, I could have identified this stigma. I see where my clients react. Some of them adopt self-stigma because they know there is a mental health problem or a concern, but because others say you crazy or the way others think about them, then they internalize that and then become self-defeating. I've had to coach persons to say, go get help. I've had parents that I would literally make the appointments with the psychiatrist and keep the appointment with them and hold their hands and say, ask all the questions that you ask me. No, you ask the doctor. But I had to be there at these appointments as a support just for parents to understand the medication, the effect of medication, and to help their child, because they were so afraid of the stigma. This is within our community. So I find that to alleviate or to hammer at the stigma, we do medication, but it does entail coaching parents and even the person who is mentally ill. We have more CPNs now, community nurse, like Nurse Dipna. We need more.
We have less actually than we did 25 years ago, but we need more.
And they work within the community again to hammer the whole issue of stigma.
All right. We have, I know, as we shared to our listeners, the news at 1 with the press briefing, hopefully somewhere there in sort of abbreviated show. But when we come back from the break, could we ask then the different agencies, and we come in loud, sort of voices for their initiative, but maybe we as a community, all of us, from the parent to the pastor to the politician to the police officer, everybody, sensitive to training and awareness and understanding and ability to look at the situation and figure out how to, what's the word we use, how do we de-escalate things? How do we look at it and understand that maybe something else is transpiring in all the midst of potentially what could be volatile? How do we get that situation from where it is and not be any worse? Is that something we can look at and then trying to address the stigma through us as a community? All right, let's pause quickly, and when we come back, we'll ask you to rejoin us.
Are you kidding me?
Hey girl, what's wrong?
My eyeliner foundation just ran out and I have to leave Savannah in 15 minutes.
That's easy. Just stop at Savannah Pharmacy. That's where I get all of my makeup, and for a great price too.
Really?
Really, girl. Where are you going?
To Savannah Pharmacy, duh.
Wait, I'm coming too. Ran out of my favorite nail polish.
Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village provides you with more than just prescriptions. Savannah Pharmacy is just around the corner with everything you need and the hours you need it. Visit us today for fast, efficient, and professional service. We are here as a team to assist you while taking care of your health. Call us today at 946-3336.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
They say variety is the spice of life. And that's why at Subway, we are introducing the new Boneless Hot Sub.
Say what?
The premium sub brings new ingredients like spicy breaded boneless chicken, French's crispy fried onions, and buffalo wing sauce, bringing a zesty and flavorful experience with every bite. Add some of your favorite veggies, cheese, and ranch sauce of your choice of freshly baked bread for the ultimate boneless hot sub. For a little spice in your life, try the new Boneless Hot Sub from Subway.
So good and tasty.
And make it a meal with a drink and chips or cookies. Subway. Eat fresh.
You deserve a unique vacation this year, one with easy non-stop flights from Cayman. Cayman Airways offers more non-stop flights to and from the Cayman Islands than any other airline. Now you can add Panama and Los Angeles to your travel bucket list. Skip the hassle of connecting flights. Panama is just a 2-hour non-stop flight from Cayman. And Los Angeles? Get there in less than 5 hours non-stop aboard Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Los Angeles or Panama getaway today.
Heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and respiratory illnesses are among the top causes of death in Cayman every year. From June 3rd until July 31st, the Ministry of Health and Wellness will conduct the STEPS 2023 National Health Survey to better understand the prevalence of non-communicable diseases within our nation. Log on to www.gov.ky/steps to learn more.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thanks again for joining us. And we ask you to not only to join us for this segment of our monthly mental health matters, and we always try to facilitate our guests by, scheduling things, accommodate them. But 1 o'clock, the briefing relative to the new airport redevelopment, that's going to be taken live as well. Dr. Alexandra Borden, together with Nurse Carton. We have Miss Ivy Robinson-Taylor, and together with Nurse Jasmine Powell joining us. I keep calling you nurse, I don't. Yeah, I know her from the days when she was elsewhere, no transfer. I call you nurse from then, so I give you a new title, but maybe you have that. But as a social worker, it's almost one and the same. I was asking though during the break that potentially could part of the stigma be our collective or perception that when someone presents with a level of, again, help me to understand the right word, mental health issues or so on, we see them as threatening sometimes to themselves and to others, and maybe we're conditioned to respond in a forceful way. Maybe it's a training. So perhaps through you, Dr. Borden, first.
Yeah, sure. And I think a lot of that is perpetuated by the media. Anytime something happens, or like, school shootings, any kind of terrorist saying, he went to counseling before, it's a mental health issue. And that's not the case. Most people with mental illness are not going to be violent. They're much more likely to be victims of violence themselves. There's a very small, very specific part that sometimes can have violence with it, which is a very specific kind of schizophrenia, but by far that's not likely. And I think that that's where the media really, really biases and skews things, because someone has depression, that doesn't make them kill people. Because someone has, anxiety or something like that, or PTSD, it doesn't necessarily mean that's something that they're going to be violent.
Yeah.
So that's the media really affects that. So I think it's more, a lot of times, like when I work with my students, I talk about kind of stepping back and looking at the bigger picture. People get very concerned with the behavior that they're seeing right then and there. But what's important is to really look at the bigger picture and what's going on, to understand, and that helps to build empathy. That if something's going on, a lot of times if something is unusual is going on, they're scared. Right? It's the disorders like schizophrenia, bipolar are very difficult for us to understand. Imagine being the person going through it, where all of a sudden you can't trust your senses, you can't trust your thoughts, you can't even trust the people around you. So there's a lot that they have to adjust to as they're going through that. A lot of it is just kind of building empathy and understanding and having some patience to see what's going on, rather than just kind of jumping to conclusions.
Let me ask if this is an appropriate analogy. I was just thinking as you shared that. There's a little kitten, there's a baby little kitten, all scared, and now is somewhere in the cupboard somewhere. You can't reach it, it won't come out. That kitten doesn't know that you're trying to rescue it. Don't go any further because right next to you is some other thing that's going to harm you. But the kitten is frightened. Here are you. Is that similar to sometimes, maybe what that person is feeling?
Absolutely. I mean, and we referenced earlier the police and how that in different countries how that can go very, very pear-shaped very quickly. But we are working with the RCIPS. We are working with the prison service, right? And we do that through the Mental Health Commission. And actually, through my role as a community psychiatric nurse, I work with them. And I do find that people are becoming more educated. So different designation, different public groups are more aware. But I think in terms of the Cayman community, one of the things that we have against us is historically that years ago, and I'm going back years ago, that when we had one psychiatrist on the island who had very limited support and had difficulty managing people who were very acutely unwell and didn't have the proper resources to follow up. There was no such thing as community psychiatric nurses in those days, except when Nurse Parchment qualified and was our very own homegrown first community psychiatric nurse that worked alongside Dr. Leahy. But people were given medications, and sometimes these medications have different side effects. And also, if you're not being followed up, if you're not being monitored, it's very difficult to keep an eye on that. So that bred some of the fear, some of the stigma within the Cayman context. But fortunately now, as we do know, we have greater resources. We have community psychiatric nurses like myself who work in the community. We don't wear uniforms. If you do need medication, right, there's a greater array of medication with a lower side effect profile which means that people can be actively treated and become very, very well. And just to say that, you know, around this table, none of us know if there's a history of mental illness. We don't know what the future may hold for any of us. We can all succumb to becoming unwell. But the bottom line is that there is treatment and there's help available. And in the interest of time, I just want to say that, you know, years ago when I worked in London, I worked with a psychiatrist who had a diagnosis of bipolar. I worked with a psychiatric nurse, a registered psychiatric nurse on a ward in acute psychiatry in London who had a diagnosis of a schizoaffective disorder. The bottom line is not once did I ever see those people unwell. They were on their game, they were very well, they shared their story, and they were a tremendous inspiration to the patients that they worked with. So the bottom line is there is help available, but talking about it and make it accessible is really, really important.
So, Dr. Watton, with what Nurse Tipton shared, even in the small Cayman community, the ease with which we think we know things about a person's life, and the little that we don't know, we may exaggerate it somewhat.
Right.
So that professional, you know, who's functioning, sometimes we don't see that in the absence of the help, the care, the medication, the assistance, the counseling, you know.
Right. Yeah, and I should have said what I was talking about with the media was more looking at acute crises, which are far less common. The estimates are generally about 1 in 4 persons experience a mental illness, which is going to be many of us, you know, and that is, you know, and thank you very much for that, Nurse Timna. What is important is that there is help available across the spectrum, everything from coaching right through to psychiatry. And finding the right person for you is really important as well. You know, so if you got to someone and you don't really like their style or the personalities don't really fit, find someone else. I think especially therapy and counseling, it's really important that you can connect with the person, you trust them, and you feel safe with them. So, but many of us deal with anxiety. Anxiety is going to be about 1 in 5, depression about 1 in 10, schizophrenia, bipolar about 1 in 100. That's bipolar 1, bipolar 2 about 3 in 100. So, but that's many people within the community, many more of us that are not diagnosable that experience the symptoms. So a lot of the things are things that we can relate to. You know, and I think that's what's most important is that we're humans first, and to look at the bigger picture with everyone. All of us have been through difficult times. All of us at any time may end up going through some difficult times and getting into some difficulties where we would be diagnosable, and there's still help available then too.
And the willingness to ask for help, but also to accept the help that's offered.
Yes.
I mean, Ms. Ivy, from your perspective, no parent wants to have a child that is unwell. You know, the little child is up and fussing. We know what we say, cutting teeth, right? We know that that's an experience, and you know it's manageable. But even to that, we don't want, much less anything else.
Exactly. It is hard for any parent, regardless of the age of the child. My son, when I found out something was wrong, he was 19. You know, he did his O-levels, passed his O-levels, and all of a sudden, after Ivan, he just started acting weird. So that was strange to me, because this is a boy that was brought up in church, go to church every Sunday. I don't have to tell you, get dressed for church. You are dressed and ready for me when I come out of, you know, my room. It's a difficult thing for any parent, mentally, emotionally. But I would encourage every parent, mothers, fathers, you know, grandmothers, whoever, stick with your child. Do not write them off. Do not push them aside and say, I can't be bothered with you, you'll pick up bad company. You know, and I'm thankful that I stuck with him. You know, regardless of what, I tried my best to get help for him in the beginning, thinking it was just bad company and smoking. But then, a year later, I found out that it was more than that. It was bipolar. He had chronic bipolar. So we started to get help, and it never happened at once. It took years. It took some years, and finally, you know, with Dr. McGill's help and Dr. Abel's help, I got him to Jamaica, and he had to, it was a fight. He didn't want to be there, you know. But then I had to take my hands off him. Your heart is still there, but you have to take your hands off and leave it to the professionals to work with. We can't expect them to have their homes there.
Mm-hmm.
They're going there to get better, to come back home.
Right.
And that is how I had to look at it. And you know, he did very well. He did very well. He ended up going to classes for a year and did some training there at Heart in Jamaica. And he came back and he has been working since. So we just have to stick with them regardless. And, you know, he's the best of my 4 children. And yet he's the one who went through all of this. Or, you know, right now I don't see signs of him, you know, acting up or going off course, but he takes his meds. He'll come and remind me, Mommy, please call in my meds. That never used to happen, you know, so he's doing all of that right now, and I'm so proud of him. I just love my son so much, you know.
It's the support that he has, it's the support that you have here. It speaks to what I think is a community that we take so much for granted. And maybe in our next discussion, we can highlight and commend the resource that is here and ask all of us, whether we are tracing their roots back generationally or we've only been here for a short time, to see what is truly a remarkable place. I do see the time, and I recognize that the press briefing will probably be shortly. But as we get ready for the news, maybe final thoughts from you, Dr. Wood?
Yeah, change begins with all of us educating ourselves, not playing into the stereotypes and the prejudices and the biases and the stigma that we've all heard around us, and standing up for each of us. And LSV offers Loud Silent Voices has both a support group for caregivers as well as a group home for clients, and they're available on Facebook and Instagram. If someone knows the website, perhaps we can pass that on as well. But thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, Ms. Jasmine, Ms. Ivy, and Dr. Thank you. And to our listeners, just a reminder, we will take our news break shortly. There is the press briefing. The Honourable Tourism Minister will be in attendance. We're talking about the airport redevelopment. And of course, Radio Kima always wants to carry things to life. So we're ready to come to you, Ms. Susan? All right. Join us after.
Today's biggest news.
Radio K-Man, your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio K-Man's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
The Headline News is brought to you by Health Services Authority.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. The Teen Pregnancy Prevention Campaign is aimed at providing education across various platforms to empower parents and teens with expert advice and knowledge. The Family Resource Center will be hosting a Talk Early, Talk Often Parent Evening on June 5th at 5:30 p.m. at the Loft in Compass Media, where experts will discuss topics such as puberty and mental health, child protection, community resources, and more. For more information, email frc@gov.ky or call 949-0006. In international news, artificial intelligence could lead to the extinction of humanity. Experts, including the heads of OpenAI and Google DeepMind, have warned, but others say the fears are overblown. The Center for AI Safety website suggests AIs could be weaponized. For example, drug discovery tools could be used to build chemical weapons. AI-generated misinformation could destabilize society and undermine collective decision-making. The power of AI could become increasingly concentrated in fewer and fewer hands, enabling regimes to enforce narrow values through pervasive surveillance and oppressive censorship, and enfeeblement, where humans become dependent on AI, similar to the scenario portrayed in the Disney film WALL-E. The possibility the COVID virus leaked from a laboratory should not be ruled out, a former top Chinese government scientist has told BBC News. As head of China's Center for Disease Control, Professor George Zhao played a key role in the pandemic response and efforts to trace its origins. China's government dismisses any suggestion the disease may have originated in a Wuhan lab. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio K-Man on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio K-Man app or log on to our website, radiokman.gov.ky.
The Headline News are brought to you by Health Services Authority.
HSA's cardiology clinic is now located at Smith Road Medical Center. Our cardiology team provides expert care and treatment for heart conditions such as coronary artery disease, heart failure, arrhythmias, hypertension, congenital heart diseases, among others. The new location offers state-of-the-art cardiac diagnostic testing, including echocardiograms, ECGs, and stress tests. To contact, call 949-8600. At HSA, your heart matters to us.
Good afternoon. We now take you live to the press briefing.
Chairman of the Cayman Islands Airports Authority Board, Mr. Johan Moxham, CEO of the CIAA, Mr. Albert Anderson, and the Department of Tourism's Director, Mrs. Rosa Harris. Joining us in studio are members of the media, as well as senior civil servants and the senior CIAA projects manager, Mr. Roy Williams. Also via Zoom, we have Chief Officer Strand Bodden joining us, as well as Brian Major from Travel Pulse, Ernie Sion from the Caribbean Media Corporation, and Bevan Springer from Marketplace Excellence. We go first to the Honorable Kenneth Bryan.
Thank you, Donna. Good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for joining us. The fact that you've taken the time to join us today, whether in studio or listening on the radio or via social media, is an indication of your interest in hearing the news and the updates from your government, and I thank you for showing that interest. I've called this press conference today alongside my partners at the Cayman Airports Authority to provide the country with some important news regarding enhancements to our island's airport infrastructure and to discuss the decisions that have been taken to improve the safety and the comfort and the efficiency at our airport operations. As the public would be aware, our airports cater to commercial and general aviation traffic. Towards the end of 2019, just prior to the start of the COVID pandemic, our commercial, business, and tourist sectors were all experiencing significant growth. While this was a good sign for the economy, it was also placing significant stress on our airports' systems and their infrastructure. Shortly after taking office, having met with the leadership and the management at the Airports Authority, I notified the public that work had commenced on updating the country's airport master plan to guide the ongoing development of our airports for over the next 20 years. In aviation terms, airport master plans are typically reviewed and updated every 5 to 7 years. The existing Cayman Islands plan was approved by Cabinet in 2014 and has not been updated since. I'm happy to advise the country that the process to update our airport's master plan has been successfully completed. This comprehensive 286-page document builds upon previous airport master plans and clearly identifies the opportunities and the constraints associated with our existing airport infrastructure and includes recommendations for improvement. I'm also pleased to advise that the outline business case presented to Cabinet on the 25th of May has been approved. The outline business case is a substantial component of the master planning process, and its purpose is to examine each of the recommendations identified in the plan and to provide the financial analysis and the cost. As such, it is a document that Cabinet has taken time to study and scrutinize in order to make its determinations. After careful consideration of all the options presented in the business case and their associated cost, I'm happy to announce that 4 specific projects have been granted approval by Cabinet to move forward. The projects will be carried out at the Owen Roberts International Airport and the Charles Kirkernel International Airport in Cayman Brac, and they are as follows. 1, extending the runway at the Owen Roberts International Airport at the cost of $28 million in CI in today's prices. And 2, improving the air traffic control surveillance systems at the Owen Roberts International Airport at the cost of $4.7 million. And 3, the provision of the new general aviation facility at the cost of $42 million. And finally, number 4, undertaking Runway and Safety Area Works, commonly known as RISA, at the Charles Kirkernel International Airport in Cayman Brac at a cost of 1.15 million CI dollars. The total cost of these enhancements and development projects, captioned as Scenario 4 in the outline business case, amounts to 76 million CI dollars and represents a significant and necessary investment in our airport's facilities, which serve as our international gateways and windows to the rest of the world. The entire slate of recommendations outlined in the business case call for an initial investment of, for an investment of over $800 million over the next 20 years, which is not feasible to consider in the current economic environment. Consequently, government has strategically selected the projects, 4 projects that will, 1, are necessary to address the safety and regulatory concerns, 2, provide the greatest business development opportunities for the country, 3, that are affordable to the country, and 4th and final, that provide solid foundation to support continued growth in our amazing tourism sector. Having received the green light from Cabinet, these projects will now proceed to the next phases of the development process, which are public consultation, environmental impact assessment, and procurement. As it is customary, the Cayman Islands Airports Authority will follow open, transparent, and competitive procurement processes, ensuring value for money is achieved at all phases of these projects. On completion, they are expected to deliver significant economic benefits and will have a major impact on our ability to strategically grow our tourism industry over time. These benefits include increased stayover visitor spending, increased revenues for the Cayman Islands government, increased opportunities for additional airlift into Grand Cayman, and a greater overall profitability for the Cayman Islands Airports Authority. Given the significance of these projects to the country's long-term economic success, the revenue required to fund the projects will be derived from increasing the terminal fees to $5, as well as introducing a new airport development fee of $15. It is important to note that the Airports Authority will not require any funding from the government to complete these projects. The new airport development fee will be applicable only during the construction period, which is estimated to be for 6 years from the year 2024 to 2029. This means that neither the Airports Authority nor the government will need to borrow funds in order to cover the estimated capital and the operating expenditure during the lifetime of the projects. Additionally, I think it's also worth noting that from a competitive standpoint, an analysis of comparable airports within the Caribbean region shows that the Cayman Islands passenger-related fees would be more in line with destinations such as Jamaica and Bahamas. In other words, we would not be pricing ourselves outside the market. A crucial part of the government's responsibility in managing our tourism industry is to bring about solutions that will boost our ability to retain our market share as a leading tourism destination. Tourism is one of the most competitive industries on planet Earth, and it is therefore imperative that we not only maintain the quality of our facilities and services that the Cayman Islands offer, but we also bring them in line with the best in the world and to keep pace with the changing expectations and requirements of our visitors. Countries across the region that we compete with on a daily basis, such as Anguilla, Antigua, Aruba, Bahamas, Barbados, British Virgin Islands, Jamaica, and the Turks and Caicos Islands, having recognized the need for airport growth to increase their tourism sectors, have either made or are in the process of making the relevant investments and incentives to position themselves for the future expansion of their tourism industry. With up to 25% of the Cayman Islands GDP derived from tourism, managing capacity and capability and competitiveness of our airports is a strategic imperative that the Cayman Islands cannot ignore. In the case of the Owen Roberts International Airport, there are no air traffic management surveillance systems in place, which means air traffic is being controlled manually. Managing air traffic in this way is not only outdated, but it reduces efficiencies and increasing the level of safety risk. This is a key area of concern for myself as Minister and for the Airports Authority, and it is a safety issue that needs to be addressed as a matter of priority. Over in Cayman Brac, the Charles Colonel International Airport is currently operating under an exemption to the airport's regulatory standard due to the inefficient length and strength of the runway and safety area, better known as RISA. This is another area of concern that also has been that will also be rectified as a matter of priority. In addition to those important safety and regulatory matters, the ministry also has to be mindful that the government has outlined in its strategic policy statement the need to attract high net worth individuals to vacation in our islands. This objective has been recognized and is included in the government's policy year after year. And yet, the current general aviation facility, which caters to private jets and high net worth individuals, is outdated, of low quality, and is a poor representation of the Cayman Islands luxury brand perspective that we display. As the Minister with responsibility for tourism, I'm keen for this anomaly to finally be addressed. The benefits to be derived from each of the approved projects extend beyond the airport and its immediate operations. The tourism industry is a major contributor to our island's economy, and extending the runway will provide the ability to service long-haul carriers, bringing travelers directly to our shores from countries not have been able to develop relationships with before. So ultimately, we'll be able to expand into new routes. If we are serious about growing tourism and if we are serious about growing our tourism product, and we are committed to expanding into secondary markets, not only do we need to be connected to those markets, but we also need to be better connected than our competition in respect to those markets. From a regional perspective, these enhancements, coupled with our national airline, will place our islands in a stronger position to take the lead in the regional connectivity efforts. This will boost our ability to negotiate with other territories and explore opportunities to service regional markets underpinned by profitable revenue guarantees. As the Minister for Tourism, I can confidently assure this country that creating the right conditions for success and sustainable future for our tourism industry is an important priority for this government, and this is why we are committed to investing in our tourism infrastructures. The Cayman Islands is recognized as one of the most successful, advanced, and sophisticated destinations in the Caribbean and in the world, and all travelers have the right to expect quality, service, and a safe and comfortable and convenient travel experience when they come to the Cayman Islands. I've invited the Chairman and the CEO from the Cayman Islands Airports Authority and the Director of Tourism to join me on the panel to explain more about the impacts and the benefits of these projects as it relates to the specific areas. Before handing over the panel, I'd like to recognize and express my sincere thanks to my Chief Officer, Mr. Strand Borden, and the Board of Directors and the management of the Cayman Islands Airports Authority for their stellar oversight and contribution to the delivery of this master plan that will continue to guide the development of our island's airports for the next 20 years. Thank you, Donna.
All right, thank you very much, Minister Bryan. We will now hear from the CIAA Board Chairman, Mr. Johan Moxham.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. Just want to say on behalf of the Board of Directors that we are proud to support the vision and the initiatives of Minister Bryan and the Ministry of Tourism. As the Chairman, I see how closely the Chief Officer, Strand Borden, Director of Tourism, Rosa Harris, and our CEO, Mr. Albert Anderson, worked together to actually put together a comprehensive plan that supports the strategic vision of the Minister and the Ministry of Tourism. I don't come from an aviation background at all, but to see a team come together, figure out the way forward, understanding what the objectives are from the outset, and to then go about putting that into action, something that I'm proud, and I want to thank all the participants, especially our CEO, Albert Anderson, fantastic man, great leader, respected by all, and able to navigate the moving parts that come along with a high-profile and high-pressure job like that. The Minister and the Chief Officer have been nothing short of brilliant, clear, and have always communicated to us what their expectations are and the plans that they have going forward. That's always in conjunction with Ms. Rosa and her amazing team at DOT. So for me, I just get to sit in my chair, make sure that from a compliance and regulatory standpoint, we are always aligned and moving forward, doing things the right way. We're open, we're transparent. We have an amazing board of some experienced people. I want to acknowledge our Deputy, Marva Reed-Bodden, Ms. Jacqueline Haynes, Mr. Alfred Thompson, Board Member Mr. Nat Tibbetts, Board Member Mr. Roy Grant, Board Member Mr. Jonathan Eady. None of us have operated, except for Ms. Marva, who has over 30 years experience in the aviation airline business. Where we, I think, lend our expertise is just from an objective governance standpoint, where we try to understand what are the rules, what are the objectives, where will we not compromise. We do not compromise at all, as the Minister rightfully said, on any safety and security matters. We understand what comes with that. We are guided and work in tandem with our CEO. So for us, it's really a understand the rules of engagement, and just move forward in meeting the objectives stage by stage. This is a part of it. This is not fixed in stone yet. The proposed project is ambitious, but we know that the team that we have working on it, and I also want to acknowledge Mr. Roy Williams, who is the project manager seconded to CIAA, for all of his hard work, the man hours, and his dedication to observe Mr. Roy, Mr. Albert, and the rest of the team put it all together, deal with the consultants, ensure that the Minister is briefed, and liaise also with DOT. It's truly a team effort, but I just want to say that I'm proud to be a part of that, and proud to be the chairman of a fantastic group of individuals that represent the Board of Directors.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moxon. We now turn to Mr. Albert Anderson, the CEO of CIAA.
Thank you, Donna. And I also would like to thank the Minister for including us in this discussion. The whole discussion on master plans probably started back in around 2019, but of course, when COVID came along, it was put on the shelf for a while, and then we got going again late 2021, early 2022. The master plan objective was to be unconstrained. In other words, let's look at what we need to make the airports in Cayman whole, to make them functional, and to deliver the quality of service that we need to deliver in the Cayman Islands. So there was no cap on what they should look at. There was no cap on anything. It's just unconstrained, tell us what is needed. And we have a fantastic document that has delivered just that. This is what we need over the next 20 years in order for these airports to function the way we want them to function. I'll focus on the 4 projects that have been approved, and I'll start with air traffic management, which is probably for me a key priority in terms of safety, which is the main objective of the airport, to ensure safe passage of passengers into and out of the Cayman Islands. So in 2019, the Owen Roberts International Airport managed some 26,000 air traffic movements. This is planes taking off or landing, and that commercial or general aviation. And this is expected to grow by about 1 to 2% per annum going forward. In the past, or even today, this traffic is managed by some very skilled air traffic controllers that we have, and they use a manual method called procedural control. From an air safety perspective, we've now reached a point where modern surveillance systems are necessary, and this project, therefore, is a top priority. It will utilize an automatic dependent surveillance broadcast, or ADSB system, as well as radar, and will enable air traffic controllers to depend on more precision in the location of aircraft, thus providing for less separation between aircraft and improved operational safety and efficiency. The other important project for us is the Charles Kirkconnell International Airport from a safety perspective. As Minister mentioned, we have an exemption now on some of the issues that exist with the runway and the airfield at Charles Kirkconnell International. And so, so we need to get that work done in order to fully comply with regulatory safety requirements. This will involve building fully compliant recesses at both ends of the runway and creating a compliant strip or a safety area along the south side of the runway. From an aerodrome safety perspective, this is absolutely necessary. General aviation, as the Minister discussed, the general aviation facility is key to improving the image of the country and the airport to our high net worth customers. The location will be at the east end of Owen Roberts International Airport by the sea, and will provide for a more aesthetically pleasing experience for GA travelers, a larger space for general aviation aircraft parking, and availability of hangar space for those who require it. The additional aircraft ramp space is important from a safety perspective and also from a customer service perspective, as currently during peak times, we have to limit how long an aircraft can remain parked on the ramp due to space restrictions. The proposed runway extension into the North Sound will enable more long-haul flights to fly directly into and out of Grand Cayman. The Director of Tourism can speak to the benefits this brings to the Cayman Islands tourism product, but from an airport perspective, this will also help to fill the low traffic periods at Oriya and will not impact the terminal capacity during peak periods. The proposed extension will take the runway pavement some 1,900 feet into the North Sound, providing for an additional 1,115 feet of usable runway and the required 787-foot runway end safety area on each end. The effort that has gone into delivering the overall master plan and focusing in on these particular 4 projects has been massive, and the chairman spoke to the team that made that happen. I want to thank the board for being supportive of the effort over this period of time and supportive in general to what we're doing at the Airports Authority, and also the ministry who have been there behind us all the way. And of course, the chairman also mentioned the project manager, Roy, who was instrumental in delivering the master plan in a timely manner. And now we have a document that we can work with to take us into the future. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. We'll now go to the Director of the Department of Tourism, Mrs. Rosa Harris.
Thank you, and good afternoon. The Cayman Islands Department of Tourism is pleased that the provisions are being made to provide the destination with an upgraded general aviation terminal and is in full support of the decision to boost our island's airport infrastructure. My team travels the world and we meet with many airlines, and this particular project is going to open up many opportunities for us to be able to increase our business development. The Cayman Islands are recognized and marketed as a top-tier destination, synonymous with quality, style, and luxury. A new facility will enable an elevated arrival experience. And these travelers that use the general aviation terminal expect their expectations to be anticipated before they even say it. So we have high expectations, Mr. Anderson, on this facility to be able to process our guests more efficiently. Given that the traveler's first and last impression of the Cayman Islands is influenced by the airport experience, Our islands require the general aviation facility to be consistent of sophisticated luxury. The brand positioning that many of our repeat travelers know and love about the Cayman Islands. So these services and amenities are very much anticipated and expected by affluent travelers. A travel experience that solidifies warm and lasting memories of a wonderful Cayman Islands experience deserves a solid yet traveler-focused airport experience to commemorate the time that they spent with us here. DOT is cognizant of the level of air traffic that arrives into the destination, particularly over the holidays. We can count all of the jets that are lined off on any particular period during the holidays. And given that the tourism industry's strong recovery and future projections for growth in our forecasts, the focus on the GA terminal is critical and necessary to bring the Cayman Islands on par with other destinations that have similar travelers. Having the ability to support expanded services on the ground through the GA facility will place DOT in a better position to engage with private jet providers in a more meaningful way. My team and I are very excited to be able to include these plans and renderings of the General Aviation Terminal in our business development presentations. We talk with the trade, with the media, and airline partners on a daily basis. So this announcement today is putting certainly a lot more tools in our kit to be able to talk about the destination. Moving now onto the runway extension. The runway extension is a highly anticipated addition, and the minister and I have had many discussions about the runway extension and how this particular element of the project will open doors. Right now, we have a one-stop service from London Heathrow on British Airways. But we've spoken with many airlines from many other European countries who would love to fly into Cayman, but just need a little bit more runway to be able to do that. And I can talk about block hours and how long it takes to get here from many different places, Helsinki and, France and Germany, but we just need a little bit more runway. So this particular pursuit is very exciting for the Department of Tourism to be your strategic partner in its pursuit. Touching on aviation in general, we meet with the airlines 3 times a year, along with the CIAA team. We attend the Roots Conference. One is in the Americas, somewhere in our side of the world, Europe, and also Asia. These meetings allow us to talk about the capacity that comes into the destination. So there's a lot of work that we do that you see online in magazines, but these business-to-business sit-downs at conferences that talk about how many room nights we have, what's coming online, how is the destination doing, what businesses are domiciled in Cayman to make a strong business proposition is critical to ensuring that we show how strong of an economic activity we have here in Cayman that makes the business case for the Cayman Islands. Larger aircraft landing in Grand Cayman, carrying more passengers and cargo would benefit service providers, taxis, tour operators, local businesses to bring in more goods, our accommodation partners. It just means more when it comes to taking home and providing for families, and also job creation. More passengers in a sustainable way. Obviously, we don't want everybody all at the same time. It also allows us to have more fuller utilization of our airport over a 24-hour period, not everyone coming in at the same time. All of these factors truly line up the justification and the business case for this particular project. I can talk about many things, and I know the minister covered some aspects of competitiveness in the region, but flattening of seasonality. We know that December through April is our peak period, but with long-haul carriers being able to come from Europe or South America also allows us to draw in people that wouldn't necessarily visit in times that we need more, and that's summer and fall. So again, the proposition there is exciting for us to be able to grow the tourism industry. Also, we have so many people here from all over the world. We want you to be able to invite your friends and your family and come to Cayman in an efficient way. And we know now that a lot of people have to connect in many places before they get to Cayman because they live in farther afield places. And this particular runway extension would allow us to open up more markets, therefore reducing the number of times a traveler has to connect to arrive in the Cayman Islands. So as a strategic partner of the Cayman Islands Airport Authority and our supporting actor role in our Ministry of Tourism on this exciting project, it is our pleasure to be a part of the Airport Master Planning Committee and work with Mr. Williams and Mr. Anderson and support the various phases of this well-anticipated project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Harris. We will now take questions from members of the media, beginning with Norma from Compass Media.
Just quickly, the 280 page document that you're based on, is that going to be made available publicly?
I just want to double check before I answer. Is the CEO can be heard via the? Can he respond via the online?
Yes. Once. Yeah. Yes.
Yes. I just want to confirm that. Mr. Chairman, would like to address the question in respect to availability of the report.
As we went through the sort of putting this entire process together, there was a lot of public consultation, multiple meetings in all three islands, meetings with stakeholders and persons that utilize the CIA regulated sort of property, so on and so forth. We have no objections at this stage. We've been transparent all the way through the process. There's no reason to believe that we would not be sharing the final outline business case with the general public, because it's what we've been doing from the outset.
CEO, you want to add anything to that, or?
Just to say that the last master plan we did was a public document, so I assume this one will be as well.
Okay, so when can we expect to see that?
I will ensure that my team within the ministry gets it to the media.
Very kind, thank you. Okay, so we're talking about expanding the runway almost 2,000 feet into the North Sound. This obviously is going to have some major environmental impacts. I'm assuming there's going to be an environmental impact assessment on that part of the project and possibly more parts of the project as well.
Correct, and I would like to take this opportunity just to give the sensitivities around that area, Mr. Roy, to ask him to come and give a little further in-depth analysis on what happens in that respect from the public consultation to the EIA process. So Roy, he's the head honcho in respect to this stuff.
Yes, good afternoon. We don't know what the impacts are for a runway expansion at the moment, extension. But we do know in 2008, Jacobs did a master plan, and the effect of any impacts out there is basically related to seagrass only. But that said, we will be doing an EIA. In fact, an application for a scoping has been put forward to DOE. That went out on the 5th of May. So as soon as we get the scoping from the Environmental Assessment Board, an RFP will go out to get an environmental consultant, and then we'll go from there. And then we'll get the true impacts of that extension. Okay?
Okay. Obviously, that's going to have a knock-on effect on the timeline that you guys are anticipating for this build. Any insights into that, how long that might take?
Well, obviously we would like to get it done as quickly as possible, but the environment is very important, and in every aspect of any project the government does, as long as it's fair and balanced. One of the things that Mr. Roy just highlighted for us to understand is that previous experiences have shown that the probabilities of the severity of the environmental impact may be minimal. We don't know that until it starts. but they will put an estimated time on how long that EIA will take, and it's already been factored in the timeline. Now, that can go off a little bit, or it could be shortened depending on what they assess, but we have factored that in our development.
Okay. For the overall timelines, I know you said it's going to be a multi-year project going on to 2029, I think you said, of the 4 elements. Do you have a breakdown of what that will consist of?
Roy, you want to?
Yeah, so the EIA, which is the key to all of this, we don't, as Mr. Bryan said, that we don't know how long that's take, but I've estimated 12 months to go through that process. So we then need to go through, obviously, the design process for the design of the runway extension. And then, of course, we get into the construction process, and, of course, the procurement to that can take months. So our estimate is that we would probably break ground sometime in around about, I believe it's mid-2025.
Okay. And are all the projects being done in tandem, or will be the runway expansion first, then the terminal, then the control tower, or is there a sequence of events for that yet available?
The projects are all being worked in tandem. As I said earlier, the priority for us from a safety perspective is the air traffic management. That's absolutely critical. So that will kick off as soon as possible. But the EIAs will begin on the runway extension. EIAs for the work we have to do in Cayman may also require a EIA. So all those will kick off at the same time, and then we'll roll into a defined timeline once we know the results of the EIAs.
Okay, thank you. And also during the consultation period at a number of the meetings, the consultants talked about a priority should also be given to Little Cayman, because there's obviously issues there regarding the regulations and then meeting the required international standards. That's not among the 4 that you mentioned today. Can you give us an update on anything that's happening with Little Cayman?
Yes. Unfortunately, it's not a part of the 4 today because of our financial position that we're in. And the government does recognize the difficulties with Little Cayman, but it's a very sensitive one because of how we go about any changes in Little Cayman. The people are adamant that they don't want it to be overdeveloped or any major changes to the way of life. But then that conflicts with our security requirements necessary for the airport. We are operating currently under a exemption from CAAA. The government has given commitment to investigating a new location for the airport and environmental impacts assessments for a larger piece of property to the east of the current location that has been identified in past administrations. And in the next budget, we'll put the necessary monies available for the authority to start those environmental impact assessments. And with that commitment, the Cayman Islands Airports Authority has given us the assurance to continue with this exemption, because without a commitment to resolving the problems, they can no longer continue the exemptions. So that's the course of action. What has been suggested, and once you see the master plan, you'll see that some of the recommendations for the airport could be rather extensive and a costly exercise. And that new facility in Little Cayman will never be able to recoup the cost because there's just not enough traffic that goes there for a brand new one. But from a regulatory perspective, I don't think we can get around those components. But what we're doing is assessing it by the way of an environmental impact assessment, and then go into development stages in conjunction with consultation with the good people of Little Cayman to make sure that their lives are not disrupted in any way.
So it's not part of this specific master plan, it will be separate?
It is a part of the overall 20-year advice of a master plan, but the projects that we've decided to do based on our financial position is not a part of that.
Okay, fair enough. And just finally, before I hand over to my colleagues, do we have any information on what the airport the increases in the airport fees are going to be to help pay for this whole project?
Yes, I did say it in my delivery, is a $5 passenger fee and a $15 development fee. I think it's construction fee or airport development fee. Albert, you can chime in.
Yeah, so both of those fees are passenger fees. So per passenger it'll be 15 and 5, as the minister said. those have to go through a process for them to be included in the ticket price, which it'll probably take about 6 months.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Roy.
Thank you very much, Ms. Norma. I'd like to now call on Wendy from Cayman News Service.
I just want to say, while we're waiting for Ms. Wendy to come up, I really appreciate our international media who are zooming in, and I'll try to see if we can go to them first, maybe give them that privilege of being with us for the first time. I think that we've had international reporters tuning into our live press briefing, so I welcome them. Wendy?
Thank you. I've got quite a lot, so I might have to just go with the main ones. Okay, the runway, is that set in stone? Are we doing it?
Yes, we are.
Oh, dear. The environmental impact assessment, will that be paid for out of the Environmental Protection Fund, or has the airport got another plan on how it's going to pay for that?
I will cease to Albert, but I don't think we're going to be touching any other fund. The modeling that we have has considered the cost with the EIA, right?
Yeah, so the funding that the airport will develop over the years will pay for the EIA.
So it's, I'm asking because it's the first thing, so it's going to be the first thing that's getting paid for. So have you got money in your budget for that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's coming out of the airport budget.
Do you think you should take it out of the environmental fund? I mean, we can do that if you think it's right.
Do it. But anyway, the runway, that is. Can you explain to us what planes will use this longer runway, and how that will fit in with your passenger projections over the coming years, and how that's all going to fit in with our sustainability plan that we're about, or the climate change plan that we're about to get, because we're going to be increasing noise, jet fuel, all sorts of other emissions, more traffic. $42 million on a terminal for rich people. How will that benefit Caymanians? I'm just trying to see where this expansion of our airport fits in with sustainable development. Miss Rosa talked about sustainable passenger. Okay, so they come in, they're in and out the airport 15 minutes instead of 20 or whatever, because I don't think people spend a lot of time in the aviation. Explain to us how it is going to be sustainable. I don't see anything sustainable about it.
Well, Wendy, thank you so much for that question, which I suspected it would come. But I think just previously, and I'm gonna ask Mr. Albert to answer your first part of your question about what kind of planes we can get, and then ask the Director Rosa to elaborate on what the benefits of those types of planes from what jurisdictions. Because I think she did a great job delivering it. Maybe you didn't hear it before, but in respect to sustainability also has to do with things outside of the environment. It's about the ability for Caymanians to continue to provide for their families, to have jobs. We have two major pillars in our economy, that is financial services and tourism. Tourism is the only one that has a level of security, because at any point financial services can disappear because it's an operation of administration, legislation and practices. Tourism is the Caymanian people and the Caymanian environment. So from when you say how is it involved in our sustainable policy, is to ensure that Caymanians continue to have an opportunity to ensure that businesses who have invested that are Caymanian in the tourism product will continue to have the opportunity to make money and create jobs for Caymanians, even though we recognize that there's outside labor that helps us with the delivery of our tourism product. So the overall sustainability and climate change policy, in my humble opinion, though it is very, very important, should not stop the opportunity of Caymanians being able to provide for their loved ones and themselves. And I don't think that that is the intention at all. I think it's there to support the development and continued opportunities that we currently provide. There's nothing wrong with improving our product by way of our tourism industry and our offerings. We've always been a leader in respect to our quality of service, and this is just one example of us doing that. So with that being said, if you want to chime in a little bit further, and I'd be happy to, but I'll try to ask Mr. Albert to answer the first part about what the capabilities of different types of planes that will be able to land as a result of the extension.
So the extension will allow what would be called Code E aircraft, so 777, 787, A350 Airbus 350s, that type of aircraft would be able to land and take off at Owen Roberts with a full load. So today we have a 777. It flies, when it leaves here, it stops in Nassau. It doesn't leave fully loaded, it doesn't arrive fully loaded. This will allow a fully loaded, fully fueled Code E aircraft to depart and land at Owen Roberts International Airport.
What airlines have already expressed an interest that want to bring these planes?
But we have British Airways today. Ms. Rosa might like to speak to
I'll
the other
allow them
airlines.
to answer the first question, and then we can answer the second one. So you gave an example of some of the types of planes. Director, you want to give some examples of interest?
Sure. I'd like to go back to the sustainability question if I could, because when you look at the definition of sustainability, it's about economic, environmental, cultural, social. So it's about balance. Some people think or interpret it as being acceptable, viable, and responsible. So we're focusing on one element, yes, on the environment, because we're proposing to go into the North Sound. And your question was, how will, actually back to the GA comment, how will a facility that costs so much benefit the people of the Cayman Islands? Well, if you have higher net worth persons coming in, renting out 7 South, that goes for much higher prices than a regular hotel room. You've got more economic injection in the economy. You've got more people working in hotel rooms to clean that suite. You've got more services that are needed to serve people that are staying in larger accommodations, because they're coming in on their own aircraft, usually with family or in larger groups, whilst we get couples as well as our mainstay. So the knock-on effect for the transport that's needed to take them to their hotel, the persons needed to serve them.
So you're describing trickle-down, in other words.
That's exactly it. But also from the sustainability side, if you do not consider the environmental, the economic, the social, meaning the people, you won't get the balance in sustainability. Sustainability
Where's the balance if the number of people and the pressure on the infrastructure, the need for more hotel rooms, the need for more development? So where's the balance? I'm not seeing any balance. Seeing plenty of economic sustainability. I'm not seeing much environmental sustainability.
Well, Wendy, as you would know, we're going through that exercise of that balance and what the island can handle and what it can't handle. We would accept that the one side of the island is a bit tensed and under pressure to the western side of the island. But the amazing people of the eastern districts deserve the opportunity for some of these benefits. And the government's collaborative plan of action by the East-West Arterial, by the extension of the airport, by utilizing all the time period of the airport is going to be helpful. You see, the one notion of seasonality will have no effect on the strain on our current layout of our environment. What I mean by that is we have high peaks where we're handling it quite well, but we have slow peaks. This extension of the airport strip will allow us to flatten that out and have a consistent income for our people. And that's the main focus. But while we are talking about our growth and what is sustainable in respect to the country, at least the door will be open if we want to grow and how much we want to grow by. It's best to have the option to choose to grow to that level than not have the option and you want to do it. And I think right now the key part that should be focused on is the opportunity to fill the gaps in seasonality when a Caymanian is working in the hotel industry and their salary goes down to $6 because there's nobody in the hotel rooms. What that airport extension can do is allow us to tap into markets that would love to fly to the Cayman Islands in slow season and use our airport even in off-peak hours. So, for instance, you can have a red-eye flight coming from Amsterdam that lands at our airport at 9 o'clock. You can have one coming from Africa that can land at 7:30. So as you, and I wish I'd created this diagram because it's so easier for people to understand, but during the day of a period of time when we're open at the airport, at the earlier part, there's not many flights coming in, and eventually we go up and we peak during the day and then we come back down. So what happens is at the very start of the day and at the end of the day, there's this gap where the airport is not being used. That means there's loss of economic opportunity, not only for the airport's revenue, but also for the Caymanian people. We believe that the airport extension allows us to fill those gaps there.
And we've done the research about this, that we know
Yes,
that
we have.
there are airlines and places and destinations that you're going to be able to do this with.
Yes, ma'am.
We've done that research.
Yes, ma'am.
So if I could add, my team meets with airlines, and over the past 3 years, we've had proposals from Eurowings, Norse, Virgin, and we got down the road with Eurowings, but then it fell off because of the length of the runway, and the same for Virgin.
And we don't want to take away those opportunities for Caymanians. I think
Do
that...
we have a figure in this plan about the type of foot traffic that you would expect, say, by in 5 years from now, 2028? What's in the plan in terms of foot traffic? How many people do we see coming as tourists?
This plan estimates that we'll increase by 1.9% per annum.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do we have, Ms. Rosa, do we match with rooms? Because a lot of the hotels that are under development at the moment seem to have slowed down, and there's been, like certainly with Pageant Beach and the Hyatt there, and those hotels.
Well, they actually haven't slowed down
COVID,
at all. Some of them
really
have
slowed
gone
it down.
through periods of trying to balance the cost of materials and the current global environment.
Yeah,
but
we know,
the good news is that
the point is it's slowed things down, so it's another couple of years now before any of those are open.
Not particularly. I think that the rate of growth that he has just suggested of 1.9 works perfectly with what we know now to be online. Next year, we're going to have the great opportunity to be welcoming a new set of beds with the Hotel Indigo. And then subsequently after that, we're going to have another series of hotels and condos open. So, and then you also have the more flexible industry, which is what is it called?
Airbnb.
Airbnb, thank you so much. The Airbnb market that allows us that once, whatever the rate is of traffic, we can accommodate. And those Airbnb markets create a lot of opportunity for Caymanians who have an apartment or an investment or a second home for them to make money. This
It's
is
also
all about
contributed
one
to the
side of
problem that
money.
you were saying the other day about housing.
Yeah.
Airbnb takes away from the regular rental market enormously. It's significant in West Bay.
Hence the reason why when we support a hotel, you should not probably say we shouldn't do it, because we're trying to balance the housing market. But when we ask for a hotel to be built, then you say, don't build it because it's not sustainable. So we can't have our cake and eat it too. So if we say, okay, we're not going to build a hotel, let's give this business opportunity to Caymanians who have a second home or a third home or apartment, you say now it's stressing the housing market. The end of the day, it's government's job to ensure economic opportunity for our people, and the second major pillar in our country is tourism, and we're going to be committed to that.
If I could give some statistics on accommodations, just to paint the picture of the health of the room stock. When we locked down in 2020, we were at 7,021 rooms, and currently we're at 7,484. So whilst we saw properties come out of the pool because maybe they were sold during the lockdown period, we had properties come online. So we've had no attrition during COVID. Pre-COVID, our average occupancy year-round was 72%. On average. So there's still healthy room for growth. Last year was our rebound year, so our occupancy was much lower.
Some redundancy first.
Yeah, we do have room for growth and to spread our visitors out. We have 3 islands. There's a lot more economic benefit that can be had amongst all 3 islands.
Sorry, Ms. Ledge, just wanted to add to that. Mr. Roy, could I invite you to the podium? Just back to your first question about the EIA. We're really conscious that we're going to follow the rules as is. The directive is, or the vision is, that we go ahead with the project, but the proposed project has an EIA element that is imperative. Now, it's important that you understand, and that's why we got the project manager here. We've been in consultation with the Department of Environment from the very beginning of this exercise, and I'll ask Mr. Roy to just brief you accordingly on the engagement with DOE and how the EIA will guide the process from there. Please.
Yes, so how we started off with the master plan, we interviewed over 51 stakeholders, of which one of those was the DOE. We wanted to know what their thoughts and impression of a master plan would be, and once we started the master planning process, which was in around about June 2022, the DOE were actively involved. We met, I think, for about 5 times. So our goal is to have the DOE along on this journey through the EIA process. We hope to have an environmental consultant on board that will one catches all type thing. So for all the projects that need an EIA, then we'll do it all under one environmental consultant. And of course, the EAB, which the DOE is a component of, will be active in choosing that consultant, the one that we actually move forward with. So I think that explains.
What about the
Do we know the area of mangrove that will be lost at this point?
There's no mangroves to be lost.
At the end of isn't there some around there at the end?
I think she's talking about the brown field area, and I think you should expand on that so she knows.
Right, okay. So the mangroves, the coastal mangroves are not going to be touched. In fact, we went to lengths to make sure that we never touched any of those coastal mangroves. When we extend into the North Sound, there is thoughts, and again, this is all we won't know until the EIA is finished, but the idea is to surround the runway extension. I believe there's a picture here somewhere where we show planted mangroves north and south of the actual runway extension. But somebody has told me that in the past there hasn't been much success with planting mangroves, don't know. So yeah, so we're not touching mangroves at this point. And this was a direct result of talking with the DOE over the last 6 months, or I should say 9 months now.
Thank you, Roy.
Can I just check on the finances before I go?
Yeah.
Obviously, there were a lot of issues with the last project and a lot of criticism from the Auditor General about what had gone wrong, and particularly the finger was pointed, I think even yourself had said it was down to the consultant. So what especially this is a question for Mr. Johan about, as the board, you'll be supervising all of this expenditure. How confident can we, as the taxpayers of the country, be that this time there won't be the same kind of mistakes, the same kind of overruns, the same kind of weaknesses in the process, and that there will be, we can watch how much you're spending closely?
I definitely want the chairman to respond to this, because he is the exact reason why he's the chairman. I don't think you know Mr. Johan Markson well, but I can promise you under his watch there'll be no overspending, and that's why I picked him to be the chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, you can add to that.
Thank you for that ringing endorsement. Ms. Wendy, first thing we did upon being appointed was sit down and have a really candid conversation on our remit is to learn the lessons from the previous administration and the previous boards, and we will not be making those sort of mistakes. The CEO, Mr. Roy, and everyone else has put together a really detailed binder and a deep dive into all of the things that happened under the last redevelopment exercise and the lessons learned. I'm quite sure, with the permission of the ministry, perhaps we could share that with the media, but that's to be determined. But it's a significant piece of work whereby I'm really conservative. The board is made up of some really quality, experienced people. We have Mr. Al Thompson on board. There's no question that goes unasked, and we basically don't come off until the questions have been satisfactorily answered. What I can commit is, given the fact that we have the expertise of Mr. Roy, the lessons learned, and a quality leader in the form of Mr. Albert Anderson as our CEO, I would put my neck on a chopping block and to say we will not make the same mistakes of the previous administration and the previous board, because we're a lot more conservative in nature. We're driven, and truth be told, we don't want the sort of stigma to follow us in the way that it's followed the previous sort of administration, the boards. There's nobody on our board that has a pecuniary interest in any operations at the airport. There are no conflicts. No decisions that are made effectively benefit anybody on our current board of directors, and that's something that history will show could not be said under the previous administration. Be that as it may, I can commit on behalf of our board of directors and the management of CIAA, we will not have a repeat of the sort of follies and mistakes. We don't have the same set of consultants. We're looking at this with a fresh set of eyes, and we've got a dedicated resource in the form of Mr. Roy Williams to show you how serious we take this responsibility. Mr. Roy briefs the CEO twice a month on all aspects of these sort of projects. In turn, I have meetings with the CEO myself separately, and basically there's 6 sets of eyes looking at this. Yes, the CEO is responsible for the operational things, but there's nobody more focused on management of the project, management of the finances. We're blessed to have an incredible CFO in the form of Ms. Karen Baptiste. The team is really solid from top to bottom, and I'm confident that we will not fall into the same traps of our predecessors.
Wendy, I can also add.
Can I just ask the final question, which is, do we have a final figure yet?
Second final question.
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
No, this is the final subject.
Sorry.
Final subject is the finance. This is the final question on the subject.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, what was the question?
Which is, do we have a final figure for the last part of the project that we've just pretty much finished now?
The last terminal project, airport terminal
like the work
expansion.
that was done, everything that was done, including the thing. I don't know what to call it.
The runway work.
The planes farting or whatever they do.
And all this, I was just going to say before I answer your question that the document that the chairman was referring to was presented to Public Accounts Committee, and the Airports Authority was commended on the quality of that presentation. I don't know if the fact that it went to Public Accounts Committee means that it's a public document. I'll leave that to.
Should be.
So you should be able to see it. So as far as the cost of there was 2 projects we did. One was the terminal expansion, and one was the airfield upgrade.
Yep.
The terminal expansion was, the initial cost was estimated to be 55 million. It ended up at 74 million.
It was 74. Yeah, we've had that figure before, so that didn't go anymore. But what about the outside bit?
The outside bit, help me here, Roy, it was 40.
We're talking about the airfield upgrades.
The airfield upgrades.
Yeah, it was a $45 million project. Came in at 42.5.
So that one came in under budget.
Okay.
I just think it's important that I know that the last administration has gotten some bad marks for what is perceived to be one of overspending. After coming in and analyzing what the change in the cost were associated with, it is reasonable to understand and see where, while they were learning and seeing what was happening, that the government can add to those things to say, okay, we recognize that we wanted to add some more things to this project and then update the price. So when somebody starts with the first price, everybody holds them to that. But if the project can be amended and improved or decreased even, it could go, the numbers can go the opposite way. So rather than it be seen as an overspend, I think what should be determined as is an adjustment to the previous project. And I think that would be a fair assessment, Mr. Albert.
Yeah, a big part of it was adjustments that were made because there were additional things we wanted to do and we had the funding to do it. So we got the board approval to proceed.
But you yourself said there were, in 2021,
So
you
again,
yourself said that there were some significant problems.
there was some problems, as I said. A big
And
part of it was
mistakes.
that, but there was also a part where we had some issues with the consultants that increased the time and therefore increased the costs. So
Yeah.
and all that is in the documents that went to public
And I
accounts
will
committee.
ensure that you get it, Wendy, and thank you so much for your list of questions. I do recognize that we have some international
Yeah, I'm
reporters
gonna go.
online who are
Ralph-
waiting for
Ralph's
questions.
behind me as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Wendy, we do have a question from Mr. Ernie Sion from the Caribbean Media Corporation for the panel.
Yes, good afternoon. Mr. Minister, I think this one might be your direction. As the CTO chairman, you will be aware that the Caribbean is facing a major problem with regional connectivity. The Cayman Islands is one of the few in the region with its own national airline and, dare say, a well-developed airport infrastructure. Do you think the Cayman Islands, perhaps with the support of the UK government, can play a role in facilitating regional connectivity? And what might that look like? Any idea, sir?
First off, thank you so much for being a part of our press conference. It's a pleasure to have international media focusing on the Cayman Islands. Yes, that is a possibility that we could go down that road, but it takes a lot of moving parts. In my capacity as the chairman of the CTO, Caribbean Tourism Organization, discussions about making sure that we are being able to survive in the tourism product due to transportation to and from each island has been a high topic. And Cayman has been blessed, based on our financial management over the decades, to be able to afford to subsidize our own national airline. And as a member of the overseas territories, we are committed to making sure that we are committed, just like the Minister for the Overseas Territories have said, we are part of a UK family. Whatever we can do to assist that does not negatively affect the people of the country of the Cayman Islands from a financial perspective, we're willing to facilitate. To be honest with you, I've recently referred to a debate in Parliament when the GMC happened just 2 weeks ago. Much of the discussion was about assisting Caribbean overseas territories with infrastructure needs, whether it would be roads or airports, to make sure that they're able to provide a strong industry for the country. As you heard in my first opening remarks, we have a master plan for 20 years, but we're only able to do 4 components of a very large plan that is actually estimated to be over $800 million. Now, if we were in a financial position to do the whole plan, I think we could be well suited from a geographical perspective, as well as our own national airline, to potentially help other jurisdictions in respect to their air connectivity, as long as things like revenue guarantees were in consideration. The Cayman Islands have been a leader within the region from an overseas territory perspective for decades now. We are always looked to from a financial services perspective, from a security perspective. We assist our overseas territories with aircraft or helicopters when there are security issues. During the COVID pandemic, we assisted our brothers and sisters in respect to vaccines and so forth. And we continue, we're proudful of that leadership role that we play within the Caribbean, but particularly with the overseas territories. Now, if the United Kingdom or the FCDO would want to partner with the Cayman Islands to help us with this airport development so we can get it on track earlier, so we can continue to be the regional leader to support our brothers and sisters, I would embrace it, I would welcome it. But at this particular point, the Cayman Islands government is not in a position to finance the development that we want to do. And it would take the UK office to to either give support by way of allowing us to have a further debt service ratio within our country's finances, or to help to give the necessary borrowings, permissions to the airport, because we believe that there's a financing model where they can get the revenues themselves. It's just we need that security, and we have to operate within the framework for fiscal responsibility. So that's where we were limited at. But if we were to get to that point with our airport and our success with our national airline, we'd be happy to assist our regional brothers and sisters in this very important product called tourism, because when other Caribbean islands do well with tourism, it continues to keep the attraction from a tourism perspective on this region. So you can't think about the Caribbean without thinking about the Cayman Islands. So if any other Caribbean islands is marketing the Caribbean, we get the benefit as well. So there's that attitude of when tide rises, all boats rise. So to answer your question, it's really for the UK to work with us to see if we can be our continued regional leader in supporting our brothers and sisters, particularly that of the overseas territories, because that's the common UK family approach. April, or was there another question? My apologies. Was there another question by our foreign press?
You just as a follow-up, you just mentioned the UK. What contribution is the UK making, or anticipated contribution towards your own development, your own infrastructural development?
At this particular moment, they continue to give us support by being a part of the UK family and the stability of being a part of the British overseas territory. They don't financially support us because we are in a good place that we can do it for ourselves. And we pride ourselves as a nation to be able to do that. What I brought up about financial support was on the basis of the guarantees that we are not allowed to have at this particular point based on our debt service ratio. And we're allowed to only be able to borrow so much and have certain amount of reserves. And that's dictated by the Foreign Office. Now, if they were to, which I've heard indications in their parliament that they were willing to negotiate and sit down and discuss those, whether there's flexibility there. If they were willing to do that, that would help us. But we don't necessarily need their money. What we need is the flexibility to be allowed to do so by law. I'm not sure if you are familiar with the act that we are obligated to operate out of in respect to the framework for fiscal responsibility. Some other jurisdictions are not obligated to that. Some other jurisdictions have different debt service ratios allowed to them. And I think it's time for us to have that discussion, because if we had more flexibility in our financing models, we could afford more major projects that we need for the continued success of our country. And I'm just glad to hear that the UK is actually thinking and talking about that and recognizing that. So maybe they should jump on board with us on this one.
Thanks for those responses, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to April from Radio Cayman.
Thank you very much. So my questions are a little more local.
Okay.
So what we're talking about at $20 per ticket, essentially. Is that about right?
Practically, yes.
Do we have any concerns that that might have an impact on people's willingness to travel here, just in terms of cost?
Well, I'm not sure if anybody else on the panel want to contribute, but I think we analyzed that wouldn't take us out of the pricing market. We are from our location within the Caribbean, our tickets are still within the region of benefit, particularly when we have control of our own airline, unlike the other Caribbean islands, which is a bit further away. But Albert, you want to add?
Yeah, we did do a fairly detailed analysis of that versus our top 10 competitors, as according to the Department of Tourism. And with our old rates, without the increase, we were, I think, in the bottom 4 in terms of price. And by adding this, we came up a bit, but I think we're still in the bottom half.
Yeah.
So there's still room to grow if it were necessary.
Yeah. Actually, they wanted me to increase it more than that. I was like, we can't. Not, particularly when my competitors in the region, I said I want to make sure that our prices and our fees are just below them, so I can have a competitive edge.
No, a fair point. I think the minister's covered off on it. We're cost conscious. what's important for us is to ensure that we don't have to go back to core government for borrowings. So if you want a new house or you want a new car, you have to borrow or buy. We felt that we could do this if we were given the ability to just increase our fees slightly, which still makes us extremely competitive in comparison to the other jurisdictions from a price point. The $20 or $15 won't bankrupt anybody or prevent Caymanians from flying. That much I'm confident of.
Fair enough. Of course, this is a lot of money we're talking about overall. Is there a way to sort of quantify the cost of things versus what we'll be getting back? I mean, I know you had some percentages of growth, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around, we're investing this, here's what we expect back from it as an economy.
I don't think we've done that analysis, but it's one that should be done. And it's one of the unfortunate circumstances we have with the lack of tax structures that we have. So without the income tax structures, not that I want income tax, but it's hard for the data analysis to be drawn on the economic impact of tourism. Normally, most people think about, oh, how much revenue directly from room tax we have received, and that's it. But don't think about the trickle-down effect, how much consumption in our duty goods that we collect. So, to be honest with you, there's no way to give you that analysis outside of asking a specialist to put that together. And maybe that's good, so people can understand that what we are planning for just over $70 million, what we're going to get in return, not only right after the airport runway is completed, but in the long term is going to be, I'm safely going to say, within the hundreds of millions of dollars of economic benefit. But I can't give you a figure on that.
Fair enough.
In addition, April, just to add to the Minister, we've taken a very conservative approach in our projections on footfall, number of people that'll be coming through. It's just the nature of the management team, the board. We want to under-promise and over-deliver, for the want of a better phrase. And so that's what guides us all the way through, in conjunction with detailed conversations with the Minister, the Chief Officer, and Ms. Rosa and her team at DOT. That's led by our CEO, who's possibly more conservative than me. Can't believe that I said that, but there you go. That's how we come to these things.
And I got 2 messages while here. Don't forget to ask about jetways.
Okay.
Figured that would come.
Okay, I knew that. Yeah, definitely knew that was going to come. So jetways is a component of the bigger master plan. Again, we are doing the projects that we can afford at this particular point. And Project Manager Roy, if you come out, you could probably explain this a little bit better. But the reason for why we decided to go along with these 4 particular project areas are based on 2 points. The first, the 2 major ones, which is the general aviation and the airport expansion, or the airstrip extension, allows the country and the Airports Authority to be in a position to increase its revenue. The other 2, which is the surveillance and the RESA in Kim BRAC, is compliance and regulatory adjustments to make sure that we're compliant. So we had to do those last 2, and the first 2 is on the basis of increasing revenue, so that we can later on be in a position to, so for example, when we extend the airstrip, we'll be able to have more planes coming in. Each passenger that comes off, the more money the Airports Authority will have. So your revenue body will increase, which then allows you to be in a financial position to go ahead and pay for the other things that is a part of this plan, like, for instance, the jetways and the airport parking space, as well as the other things. Actually, Roy, I think it would be a good idea to give the listening audience an idea of what the other areas of this master plan highlight, as I was explaining in respect to having those other 2 projects done to increase the revenue so we can do those later on.
Yeah, so when you do see the master plan, you'll see a conceptual layout of the new terminal, or I should say the expanded terminal, that's a better way of putting it. And of course, with that are the jetways. We have a problem with mixing of passengers at the moment, arriving and departing passengers. That's something we've got to address from a security standpoint. That will be addressed in the new terminal. Security screening checkpoint and the check-in areas are reaching capacity. We're projecting, like Mr. Albert said, 1.9% growth year over year. So that's just going to get worse. So again, we just have a very basic plan at the moment for the terminal expansion, which will also expand to the east, which departures will go upstairs. We have to go up another level for jetways. And of course, mentioned parking. With all of this increased passenger growth, we're expecting increased parking capacity issues. So I think that's about it, really. Sorry.
Thank you very much for that. We're going to finally end here with, from Loop Cayman, Mr. Alric Lindsay.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting us to a very informative press conference. I want to say, first of all, that I'm very happy that we have this type of chairman who is thinking long-term and thinking about the interests of the Cayman Islands. And I'm very happy to hear that he's also interested in having this EIA done, which is then going to inform other parts of the project. As we know, a lot of times the public reacts very quickly to projects like this, which, as you say, will go into the North Sound. Now, it's always important for the public to understand that what you presented are just plans. And a lot of times people react and think that a decision has been made and this damage is going to be done and that damage is going to be done. So I'm very happy to hear that you are proceeding with the EIA to consider all the environmental impacts, and you're also considering long-term sustainability, which is a breath of fresh air compared to what we've seen in the past with some other boards. So, having said that, my one question is, in your view, what impact will the redevelopment have on airport operations and passenger experience during the construction period? So the 4 projects that we're addressing during the construction phase should have no impact. At Oriya, for example, with the proposed runway extension, that work can be done without impacting air traffic. So we did, if you remember, the last runway work that we did was extensive across the whole runway, and we didn't impact traffic during that period. Admittedly, it was during a low traffic period during the pandemic. But yes, it can be worked out to be done without impacting traffic. The general aviation will not impact traffic. It's a completely different location on the site from the existing GA. So we can build and then transfer. And the Cayman Brat Works, again, is off the runway and can be done without impacting traffic. So I don't see any impact to passengers or air traffic from any of those projects. Thank you, CEO. As a sort of a follow-up question, in terms of, as you proceed with the EIA and you think about the impacts and you do public consultation and come to sort of a final plan, how will the airport measure success of the project, and what metrics will be used to evaluate the impact?
So again, if I take the 4 projects, the ones that we can measure success, and so the Cayman Brac one is a regulatory requirement. It's something we have to do. The air traffic one is also a regulatory requirement, but we can measure success on that in terms of the efficiency of arriving and departing traffic. For example, the way we've handled air traffic today means we have to keep aircraft a certain distance apart in the air because we're not using the radar or the ADS-B. Once we get that in place, we're able to keep them closer together because we
have more precise information on where they are, so we can then line up more aircraft for landing or takeoff at a given time. So we can we can improve the efficiency of the air traffic. And the runway extension, if and when that is put in place, Ms. Rosa has already defined what we expect from that, and we can measure the results against that in terms of the tourism traffic.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Lindsay. We're going to go to final words from Minister Bryan.
Thank you so much, Donna, and I want to say thank you so much to my panelists for being here today. This is a major step for the country, as well as for our tourism product and our sustainability of our economy. I want to thank the listening audience, those who have tuned in via social media, those who tuned in via the radio. On behalf of the Premier, on behalf of the PAC members of this government, I want to say thank you so much. May God continue to bless you and our wonderful Cayman Islands.
All right, thank you very much, Minister Bryan, and thank you to the public, again, the media, as well as our panelists. I'm Donna Bush. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You've been listening live to a press briefing, which was to do with the 2023 Airports Redevelopment Plan.
Innovation Beauty and Barber Shop in Tropical Plaza. Full service salon specializing in braiding, weaving, and all things beautiful. Bring out your unique beauty. Conveniently located upstairs Tropical Plaza on Smith Road. Easy lunchtime wash and blow. Avoid the evening traffic with a pedi or taking a full service hair treatment. Kids hair service and special occasions also available. Book your next service at 233-5572 or 326-5572 and take advantage of the Happy Wednesday specials at Classic Innovation Beauty and Barbershop. Savings on pedicures, women's and men's hair care. Classic Innovation Beauty and Barbershop. Located upstairs, Tropical Plaza on Smith Road.
You deserve a unique vacation this year, one with easy non-stop flights from Cayman. Cayman Airways offers more non-stop flights to and from the Cayman Islands than any other airline. Now you can add Panama and Los Angeles to your travel bucket list. Skip the hassle of connecting flights. Panama is just a 2-hour non-stop flight from Cayman. And Los Angeles? Get there in less than 5 hours non-stop aboard Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Los Angeles or Panama getaway today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza, open Monday to Friday 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama.
Here is where tradition never dies. This is your radio.